there are people who smile with kindness while secretly resenting your existence. There are people who speak softly, support you publicly, stand beside you in moments of comfort, and yet, beneath the polished surface of their persona, something darker quietly waits beneath the floorboards of their consciousness like an animal hiding in the shadows of an abandoned house. And most people never notice it, not because the signs are invisible, but because human beings are conditioned to look at words instead of energy, performances instead of patterns, masks instead of the fractures hiding underneath them. Carl Jung once said that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. But what most people never realize is that this truth applies not only to yourself, but to everyone around you, because every person you meet carries two identities. The first is the character they consciously present to the world. The second is the hidden architecture. Beneath it, the wounded self, the shadow, the emotional chaos they spend their entire lives trying to conceal. And if you do not learn how to recognize the difference, you will continue trusting people who slowly poison your spirit while pretending to love you. Stay with me because this is important. There are two signs, only two, that reveal a person's true character more accurately than charm: intelligence, status, beauty, spirituality, or even love itself. And once you see these signs clearly, you will never look at people the same way again. You will begin to notice things hidden beneath ordinary conversations. You will feel the tension beneath fake kindness. You will hear the bitterness hidden inside compliments. You will recognize the silent war between the mask and the soul. And suddenly, human behavior will stop confusing you. Because the truth is, a person's character is never revealed during moments of comfort. It is revealed when life removes the mask they carefully built to survive the world. That is when the unconscious begins speaking. That is when the shadow leaks through the cracks. That is when the soul exposes itself. Maybe you already know this feeling. That strange moment when someone's eyes change after your success. That subtle coldness hidden behind their congratulations. That invisible shift in energy when you begin becoming more confident, more peaceful, more powerful. At first, you try to ignore it. You tell yourself you are imagining things, because the human mind desperately wants harmony. It wants to believe the people around us are sincere. But your intuition notices what your conscious mind tries to rationalize away. And Jung believed intuition was not irrational at all. It was ancient intelligence. A deeper layer of perception that notices emotional truths before logic can explain them. This is why certain people drain you even when they say all the right things. This is why some individuals create heaviness in a room without speaking a single word. This is why your nervous system reacts before your intellect understands. The unconscious always speaks first. And here is the part nobody talks about. Most people are not deeply connected to their authentic selves. They are connected to survival versions of themselves. Masks, personas, protective identities constructed from fear, rejection, shame, abandonment, humiliation, and the desperate need to belong. The smiling person may secretly hate themselves. The confident person may be terrified of inadequacy. The generous person may secretly crave control. The spiritual person may be hiding unbearable darkness. Because the ego does not show you truth, it shows your performance. And modern society rewards performance more than authenticity. This is why truly seeing someone becomes rare. Most relationships are not connections between souls. They are interactions between masks. One persona speaking to another persona while the deeper self remains trapped behind. Psychological walls built years ago during moments of pain no one ever healed. And this is where everything changes. Because once you understand this, you stop asking shallow questions like, are they nice? Are they successful? Are they attractive? Instead, you begin asking deeper questions. How do they behave when life wounds their ego? How do they respond when they cannot control the outcome? How do they react to another person's light? Because hidden character always emerges under pressure. always, just like storms reveal the strength of roots hidden beneath the earth. And the first sign, the first doorway into someone's true character, appears during moments they experience powerlessness. Watch carefully when life denies people what they want. Watch their face when they are rejected. Watch their energy when they lose attention. Watch what happens when they cannot manipulate circumstances in their favor. Because frustration exposes the unconscious faster than comfort ever will. A calm person is not necessarily emotionally evolved. Sometimes they are only calm because reality is obeying them. But remove control, remove validation, remove admiration, and suddenly another identity appears from the darkness. One filled with bitterness, cruelty, blame, envy, rage, or emotional violence. This is the shadow surfacing. Jung believed the shadow contains everything we reject within ourselves. The emotions we deny, the impulses we suppress, the traits we pretend we do not possess. But repression does not eliminate darkness. It only buries it alive, and buried things eventually return, especially during emotional stress. This is why some people become terrifying when they are ignored, why others become manipulative when they feel insecure, why certain individuals attack innocence simply because it reminds them of what they lost inside themselves long ago. The unconscious hates exposure. And nothing exposes hidden wounds more than powerlessness. If someone humiliates others when they feel weak, if they become cruel when rejected, if they weaponize guilt when they cannot control you, you are not witnessing a temporary mood. You are witnessing their hidden structure, their real emotional foundation. Because pressure does not create character, it reveals it. And perhaps this explains a painful truth you have experienced yourself. Sometimes the people who hurt you the most were not strangers. They were individuals who appeared loving until circumstances stopped benefiting their ego. Then suddenly the mask slipped, and the soul behind it finally became visible, cold, resentful, emotionally hungry. As though the kindness was never truly kindness at all, only a transaction designed to maintain control, validation, or emotional security. But the truth goes further than that. There is another sign even deeper than how people behave during powerlessness. A sign so revealing that once you understand it, you will begin seeing hidden envy, unresolved trauma, emotional emptiness, and unconscious insecurity almost immediately. And strangely enough, this second sign appears not during someone's suffering, but during your light. The second sign reveals itself when life begins opening doors for you that remain closed for them. Not when you fail, not when you are broken, not when you are lost and emotionally dependent, but when you begin rising, when your voice becomes stronger, when your energy becomes calmer, when your presence no longer asks the world for permission to exist. That is when hidden character becomes impossible to conceal. Because nothing exposes the unconscious more violently than another person's transformation. Especially when that transformation forces someone to confront the parts of themselves they abandoned long ago. Carl Jung understood something most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Human beings do not merely react to reality. They react to what reality awakens inside them. This is why your happiness can trigger sadness in someone else. Why your confidence can awaken insecurity. Why your authenticity can silently threaten people still imprisoned by masks. And this is where most people remain trapped. They think jealousy is only about wanting what another person has, but true envy is much darker than that. Envy is grief disguised as resentment. It is the pain of witnessing someone else become what you secretly abandoned within yourself. Stay with me because this is important. When someone cannot celebrate your growth sincerely, when your healing irritates them, when your success creates emotional distance instead of genuine joy, you are seeing the unconscious reveal itself through emotional friction. At first, the signs are subtle, very subtle. A delayed congratulations, a strange silence after your achievement, a compliment carrying invisible poison beneath it. They smile, but their energy contracts. They support you, but something feels emotionally absent. Your intuition notices the fracture before your mind understands it. And this is because authentic people expand when others shine. Wounded people contract, not consciously, not always intentionally, but psychologically, because another person's light forces them to confront their own darkness. And here is the part nobody talks about. Some individuals only love versions of you that make them feel psychologically safe. The insecure version, the uncertain version, the wounded version, the smaller version. Because your weakness allowed their ego to feel superior, needed, or emotionally protected. But once you evolve, once you stop seeking validation, once you begin carrying yourself with inner authority, their unconscious fear awakens. And suddenly the relationship changes. Not because you became arrogant, but because your transformation disrupted the emotional contract they secretly depended on. This is why certain friendships die after your healing. Why some relationships become colder after your success. Why some families subtly punish authenticity. The unconscious system around you was designed to preserve emotional familiarity, not necessarily your evolution. And when you become different, the hidden insecurities inside others rise to the surface like shadows emerging at dusk. Carl Jung called this projection. One of the most powerful and dangerous psychological mechanisms in human existence. Projection occurs when people cannot face certain truths within themselves, so they unconsciously place them onto others. The insecure accuse others of arrogance. The dishonest become obsessed with betrayal. The emotionally repressed criticize authenticity. The unfaithful become paranoid about loyalty. What they refuse to confront internally, they attack externally. And once you understand projection, human behavior becomes terrifyingly transparent. You stop listening only to words. You begin observing emotional patterns. Because every accusation reveals hidden inner conflict. Every irrational reaction reveals an unhealed wound. Every emotional overreaction exposes unconscious pain. But what Jung discovered next was even deeper. The people most disturbed by your authenticity are often those who abandoned their own. This is why free spirits provoke judgment, why emotionally awake individuals trigger discomfort, why deeply self-aware people are often misunderstood by those still living through social masks. Authenticity is threatening to people who survive through performance. Because your existence silently asks them a question they do not want to answer. What happened to the person you once were before fear taught you to betray yourself? And that question alone can awaken enormous unconscious hostility. Maybe you have felt this before. You entered a room peacefully, and someone instantly became defensive. You spoke honestly, and another person mocked you. You remained calm, and others became emotionally agitated for reasons they could not explain. At first, it feels confusing, but psychologically something deeper is happening. Your presence is disrupting unconscious structures. Because authenticity acts like light entering abandoned rooms inside the human psyche. It reveals dust people spend years trying not to see. And some people would rather attack the light than confront the darkness it reveals. This is why emotionally wounded individuals often create subtle psychological games. Passive aggression, silent competition, emotional withdrawal, dismissive humor, backhanded compliments. Small attempts to reduce your confidence without openly appearing hostile. These behaviors seem insignificant individually, but together they reveal hidden resentment, the shadow leaking through the persona. And this is the tragedy of unconscious living. Many people genuinely believe they are kind, good, loving. But beneath conscious identity lies a wounded emotional structure they have never explored, a hidden architecture built from shame, comparison, rejection, humiliation, and unmet emotional hunger. And until someone confronts that darkness consciously, it controls them invisibly. Jung warned that the most dangerous people are often not consciously evil. They are unconscious. Because unconscious people believe their projections are truth. They justify cruelty as honesty, control as love, jealousy as concern, manipulation as protection. And this is why discernment becomes sacred, not paranoia, not cynicism. Discernment, the ability to see beyond performance, to feel what exists beneath words, to notice the emotional atmosphere people create around you. Because energy never lies for long, masks eventually crack, especially around people carrying genuine inner awareness. If this resonates deeply with you, if you have always sensed hidden emotional currents others ignored, comment the number 777 below, not as superstition, but as recognition, a quiet acknowledgement that your intuition has been trying to protect you for far longer than you realized. And here is where everything changes. Once you begin recognizing these two signs, how people behave during powerlessness and how they react to your light, you start understanding something painful but liberating. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Not everyone celebrating beside you is emotionally with you. And not everyone who says they love you is capable of loving the person you are becoming. But the truth goes further than that. Because eventually this journey stops being about exposing others and becomes about confronting yourself. Because the same shadow you recognize in humanity also exists within you. This is the moment where the path becomes uncomfortable. Because it is easy to analyze the darkness in others. Easy to notice manipulation, envy, projection, emotional dishonesty, and hidden hostility when it appears in the people around you. But far more difficult, far more terrifying, is turning inward and asking yourself a question most human beings spend their entire lives avoiding. What unconscious patterns live inside me? Carl Jung believed that the greatest illusion of human existence is the belief that we are fully aware of ourselves. But the psyche is not a single room. It is an entire hidden structure, a vast inner architecture filled with locked doors, abandoned corridors, forgotten memories, buried emotions, silent fears, and identities we learn to suppress in order to survive. And somewhere inside that structure lives the shadow, not evil, not monstrous, but rejected. The parts of yourself you were taught were unacceptable, the anger you swallowed to be loved, the sadness you hid to appear strong, the sensitivity you buried to avoid humiliation, the ambition you denied because others feared your power. The truth is, most people are not living as their authentic selves. They are acting out survival performances created during emotional pain. A child rejected for expressing emotion becomes emotionally numb. A person betrayed repeatedly becomes controlling. Someone ignores their entire life becomes addicted to attention. A wounded soul learns adaptation before authenticity. And after enough years pass, the mask begins feeling more real than the person underneath it. This is where most people remain trapped, because confronting the shadow feels like psychological death. To acknowledge the unconscious means admitting that the identity you spent years protecting may not actually be who you are. Stay with me because this is important. Every unhealed wound creates unconscious behaviors, and unconscious behaviors create repeating life patterns. The same toxic relationships, the same emotional disappointments, the same internal emptiness, the same strange feeling that something inside you remains disconnected no matter how successful, attractive, spiritual, or accomplished you become. Because external achievements cannot heal internal fragmentation. The soul does not want performance, it wants integration. And this is where Jung's philosophy becomes transformative. He believed healing begins the moment you stop running from yourself, not the polished self, not the socially acceptable self, but the hidden self, the frightened self, the jealous self, the lonely self, the exhausted self, the self buried beneath years of pretending. Because what you suppress does not disappear. It waits, silently, influencing your relationships, reactions, fears, desires, and decisions from beneath conscious awareness like roots growing under the floor of a house. And eventually, those roots crack the foundation. This is why some people sabotage love when it finally arrives, why others destroy opportunities they prayed for, why many feel anxious during peace and comfortable inside chaos. The unconscious always recreates what feels emotionally familiar, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. And here is the part nobody talks about. Sometimes the people who hurt you awakened something necessary inside you. Not because the pain was fair, not because betrayal was justified, but because suffering often forces consciousness. Pain removes illusions comfort allows us to keep. It exposes attachment, dependency, self-abandonment, hidden insecurity, emotional blindness. Jung understood this deeply. He knew that darkness is not always the enemy. Sometimes darkness is the doorway, a threshold, a painful initiation into greater awareness. Because before transformation, there is disillusionment, the collapse of old identities, the breaking of emotional fantasies, the realization that the world is not always what you hoped it was. And perhaps you are experiencing this now. Maybe you have started noticing how exhausting certain relationships feel. Maybe your intuition no longer allows you to ignore emotional dishonesty. Maybe crowds feel emptier than they once did. Maybe you have outgrown environments that used to define your identity. And maybe part of you feels lonely because the old version of yourself is dying while the new version has not fully emerged yet. This is the psychological threshold Jung wrote about, the space between identities, the death of illusion before rebirth. And it feels deeply uncomfortable because the ego fears uncertainty more than suffering. At least suffering is familiar. Transformation is unknown. But what happens next changes everything. Because eventually, if you remain conscious long enough, something extraordinary begins occurring inside you. You stop chasing validation. You stop needing constant approval. You stop shrinking yourself to maintain emotional comfort for others. You stop confusing attention with connection. And slowly, almost invisibly, your energy changes. Not louder, not more performative, quieter, stronger, more grounded. You begin recognizing manipulation immediately because you no longer manipulate yourself. You notice emotional dishonesty because you stopped lying to your own soul. You stop forcing relationships because you understand loneliness is less destructive than self-betrayal. This is the beginning of individuation, Jung's term for psychological wholeness, the process of becoming who you truly are beneath conditioning. Not perfect, not superior, but integrated, conscious, real. And strangely enough, this transformation changes the way people react to you. Some feel safe in your presence for the first time in their lives. Others become uncomfortable without understanding why. Because conscious people naturally expose unconscious systems. Your silence becomes threatening to manipulators. Your boundaries disturb emotionally entitled individuals. Your calmness frustrates those addicted to chaos. Not because you are trying to intimidate anyone, but because authenticity disrupts illusion. And illusion is the foundation upon which many identities are built. If this feeling has followed you your entire life, the sense that you were seeing something deeper beneath people's behavior, comment 11 below, not for attention, but as a quiet signal that your awareness is beginning to awaken beyond social conditioning. And this awakening changes how you experience reality itself. Because eventually you realize something profound. Most human suffering comes from unconscious identification. People mistake the mask for the self, the wound for identity, the fear for truth, the ego for the soul. But the truth goes further than that. There is an even deeper layer beneath the shadow, beneath the ego, beneath personality itself. A hidden force Jung believed connected all human beings through symbols, instincts, dreams, and ancient emotional memory. The collective unconscious. And once you understand it, human behavior begins making sense in ways almost impossible to explain with ordinary language. There is a strange moment that happens during deep psychological awakening. A moment where you begin realizing that human beings are not nearly as separate from one another as they appear. The same fears repeat across generations. The same emotional wounds echo through families. The same destructive patterns move from parent to child like invisible inheritance. The same hunger for love. The same fear of abandonment. The same longing to be truly seen. Carl Jung believed these patterns emerge from something far deeper than personal memory. He called it the collective unconscious, a hidden ocean beneath the individual mind. a psychological realm containing ancient symbols, instincts, emotional archetypes, and inherited patterns shared across humanity itself. And this is where everything changes. Because once you begin understanding the collective unconscious, you stop seeing human behavior as random. You begin seeing archetypes, patterns, invisible forces shaping personality from beneath awareness. The wounded child, the martyr, the savior, the tyrant, the seducer, the seeker, the destroyer, the wise old soul. These archetypes do not merely exist in myths or stories. They live inside people, inside you, inside everyone you have ever loved. And most people unconsciously become possessed by these identities without ever realizing it. The man who constantly needs admiration may be unconsciously ruled by inadequacy. The woman who endlessly rescues broken people may secretly fear abandonment. The person obsessed with appearing strong may be terrified of emotional exposure. And because these forces remain unconscious, people repeat the same emotional cycles again and again while believing life itself is against them. But the truth goes further than that. What you call attraction is often unconscious recognition. What you call chemistry is sometimes familiar pain. What you call love may actually be unresolved psychological longing searching for completion. This is why certain people feel strangely familiar moments after meeting them. Why some connections feel ancient. Why certain eyes disturb your soul without explanation. The unconscious recognizes patterns long before the conscious mind understands them. Stay with me because this is important. Most relationships are not formed through consciousness. They are formed through wounds seeking mirrors. A neglected person unconsciously seeks emotional intensity because calmness feels unfamiliar. An abandoned soul becomes addicted to inconsistent affection because uncertainty resembles childhood love. A deeply insecure individual chases validation through people who cannot fully love them. Not because they enjoy suffering, but because the unconscious always gravitates toward emotional familiarity, even when that familiarity destroys peace. And this explains one of the most painful truths about human existence. People do not always choose what is healthy. They choose what feels psychologically known. This is why awakening feels so lonely at first, because consciousness begins breaking unconscious cycles. You stop romanticizing emotional chaos. You stop confusing obsession with connection. You stop ignoring red flags simply because someone feels familiar to your wounds. And suddenly, relationships that once felt magnetic begin feeling exhausting. Because your soul is no longer searching for unconscious repetition. It is searching for truth. But here is the part nobody talks about. The more conscious you become, the more sensitive you become to energy itself. Not in a mystical performance-driven way, but psychologically, emotionally, spiritually. You begin noticing what people carry beneath their words. Some individuals bring peace into a room. Others bring tension before they even speak. Some people feel emotionally nourishing. Others feel psychologically consuming. And your nervous system notices the difference immediately. This is why certain conversations leave you drained for hours. Why some individuals create invisible anxiety around them. Why your body sometimes rejects environments your mind tries to tolerate. The unconscious communicates constantly through sensation, through intuition, through emotional atmosphere. And modern society teaches people to disconnect from these signals, to ignore instinct, to suppress intuition, to distrust inner knowing. But Jung warned that ignoring the unconscious creates fragmentation. The soul begins splitting from the conscious self, and eventually, people become strangers to themselves. They perform happiness while privately feeling empty. They chase status while emotionally collapsing inside. They surround themselves with noise because silence forces self-confrontation. Because silence is dangerous for unconscious people. In silence, masks begin dissolving. And beneath the noise, beneath distraction, beneath social performance, the hidden self starts speaking. This is why so many fear being alone. Not because solitude itself is painful, but because solitude removes distraction. And suddenly unresolved emotions rise from the depths: grief, regret, loneliness. The abandoned inner child still waiting to be acknowledged. The shadow still waiting to be integrated. The authentic self still trapped beneath years of conditioning. But what Jung discovered next was even deeper. He realized that true healing does not come from becoming perfect. It comes from becoming whole. And wholeness requires embracing every part of yourself consciously. The light and the dark. The strength and the vulnerability. The confidence and the fear. The beauty and the brokenness. Because psychologically mature people do not deny their darkness. They become aware of it. And awareness transforms unconscious destruction into conscious wisdom. This is why healed individuals feel different. Not because they never suffered, but because suffering made them conscious. Their pain became insight instead of bitterness. Their loneliness became self-knowledge instead of desperation. Their wounds became gateways into compassion instead of cruelty. And once you encounter someone truly conscious, you immediately feel it. There is no need for performance, no need for domination, no need for manipulation. Their presence feels calm because they are no longer fighting themselves internally. And perhaps this is what your soul has been searching for all along. Not perfection, not endless excitement, not validation, but psychological truth. A connection untouched by masks. A life not built upon unconscious fear. A reality aligned with the deepest parts of your authentic self. If you feel yourself awakening while listening to this, comment 520 below, not as a trend, but as recognition that part of your consciousness is beginning to remember who you were before the world taught you to wear masks to survive. And here is where everything reaches its final threshold. Because eventually, after enough suffering, enough awareness, enough inner confrontation, one terrifying realization emerges above all others. The people you once chased for acceptance were often deeply disconnected from themselves. And the moment you truly understand this, your entire relationship with life begins changing forever. There comes a moment during awakening when the illusion finally breaks, not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, like an old wall collapsing somewhere deep inside your psyche after years of invisible pressure. And suddenly you understand something that changes the way you see every relationship, every wound, betrayal, and every moment you spent questioning your worth. Most people cannot meet you beyond the depth they have met themselves. Read that again slowly inside your soul. Most people cannot love beyond their level of consciousness, cannot understand beyond their emotional maturity, cannot connect beyond the walls protecting them from their own unresolved pain. And this realization is both heartbreaking and liberating at the same time. Because for years, perhaps your suffering came from expecting emotional depth from emotionally unconscious people. You tried explaining your heart to individuals disconnected from their own. You searched for sincerity inside masks. You searched for truth inside performance. You searched for emotional safety inside wounded souls still fighting invisible wars within themselves. And when they failed to see you, you blamed yourself. But what most people never realize is, being misunderstood is not always evidence that you are wrong. Sometimes it is evidence that you are becoming conscious inside a world addicted to unconsciousness. Carl Jung understood this deeply. He knew that awakening often creates isolation before it creates peace. Because once you begin seeing clearly, you can no longer comfortably participate in illusions that once felt normal. You notice manipulation hidden inside politeness. You notice emotional emptiness behind charisma. You notice performative spirituality masking unhealed ego. You notice how desperately people try to escape themselves through distraction, validation, control, status, noise, relationships, substances, attention, or endless social performance. And perhaps most painfully, you notice how many people abandon their authentic selves simply to be accepted. This is the tragedy of modern existence. Human beings starving for love while wearing masks that make genuine love impossible. People longing to be seen while hiding who they truly are. People terrified of rejection while rejecting themselves every single day. And this is where your transformation becomes sacred. Because eventually, after enough inner work, something inside you stops begging the world for permission to exist. You stop shrinking your soul to protect fragile egos. You stop over-explaining your boundaries. You stop betraying your intuition to maintain connection. You stop confusing emotional intensity with love. And for the first time in your life, you begin choosing peace over performance, truth over attachment, consciousness over comfort. Stay with me because this is important. The two signs we spoke about were never merely tools for judging others. They were mirrors, doorways into deeper awareness, because how someone behaves during powerlessness and how they react to another person's light reveals the relationship they have with themselves. The cruel become crueler when wounded because they lack inner integration. The jealous become hostile toward light because they abandon their own. The manipulative seek control because chaos lives inside them. Every unconscious behavior points toward hidden fragmentation. And once you understand this, compassion becomes possible without sacrificing discernment. You stop taking unconscious behavior personally, not because it does not hurt, but because you finally understand the psychological machinery beneath it. You realize that many people are simply acting from survival patterns created long before they met you. Trauma speaking through personality, fear speaking through ego, loneliness speaking through control, pain speaking through anger. And this awareness changes you, not into someone naive, but into someone conscious. Someone capable of seeing human beings clearly without losing themselves emotionally inside the process. This is psychological maturity, not bitterness, not superiority, awareness. The ability to recognize darkness without becoming consumed by it. And perhaps this is why your path has always felt different, why superficial conversations exhausted you, why crowds sometimes made you feel lonelier than solitude, why your intuition kept warning you about people long before evidence appeared, why you always sensed hidden emotional currents beneath ordinary interactions. You were not too sensitive. You were perceiving what many people were trained to ignore. And the deeper your consciousness becomes, the less tolerance you develop for falsehood. Because the soul craves alignment, not performance, not illusion. Alignment. A life where your inner world and outer existence finally stop contradicting one another. And here is the part nobody talks about. True awakening is not becoming emotionally cold. It is becoming emotionally honest. It is learning to love without abandoning yourself, to care without losing discernment, to remain compassionate without tolerating emotional destruction, to stand in your light without apologizing for making unconscious people uncomfortable. Because your light is not arrogance. Your peace is not selfishness. Your boundaries are not cruelty. They are signs that your soul is finally remembering its own value. And once this remembrance begins, life changes in ways almost impossible to describe. You stop chasing people. You stop forcing connection. You stop fearing solitude. Because solitude no longer feels empty when you are finally connected to yourself. In fact, something extraordinary begins happening. Silence becomes peaceful. Stillness becomes nourishing. Your intuition sharpens. Your energy stabilizes. And slowly, the chaos that once surrounded your emotional life begins dissolving like fog disappearing beneath morning light. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Carl Jung once wrote that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And perhaps this entire journey, every heartbreak, every betrayal, every moment of loneliness, every painful awakening, was never destroying you. Perhaps it was removing everything that was never truly you to begin with. The masks, the conditioning, the unconscious patterns, the desperate need for external validation. So that beneath all the noise, beneath all the fear, beneath all the emotional performance, your real self could finally emerge, whole, conscious, unapologetic, and deeply alive. So the next time you question someone's true character, do not become hypnotized by charm, beauty, words, or performance. Watch carefully how they behave when life wounds their ego. Watch carefully how they react when another person shines. Because those moments reveal the hidden relationship they have with themselves. And never forget this. People can only meet you as deeply as they have met their own soul. If this message found you at the exact moment you needed it, comment "I choose awareness" below. Not for the algorithm, but as a quiet declaration to yourself that you are no longer willing to live unconsciously. No longer willing to betray your intuition. Longer willing to abandon your authentic self just to be accepted by people disconnected from their own truth. Because awakening begins the moment you finally see clearly. And once you truly see, you can never return to blindness again.